Is it racist to ban immigrants?
Hello and welcome to the show. More colourful conversations with Mark and Pete. This is the show dedicated to religion, politics and business. Yes, well, when we look across the world, we have seen much controversy. Now, we've seen in certain parts of the world the issue of immigration. Now, this sparks many, many political issues, but at the same time, it also raises the point about racism. Is it true that it's truly about racism, or is it about just simply the clash of cultures, the clash of policies? Maybe it's something else. Now, with me today is Clergyman Pete, a man who engages with many people from all walks of life. So, Clergyman Pete, what's your thoughts about immigration, and do you think this is sparked by racism?
That immigration problems can be caused by racism in its various forms, can be caused by people's distrust of the unknown, by people's insular attitude. They just haven't come across people living like that or looking like that, and when it's in sufficient numbers, they just don't feel happy with people who are different being around. But I don't think that's the fundamental issue. I don't think it is at all. I think that the issues tend to be more cultural and economic. And I think that's where we need to look to solutions to the problem with people rejecting immigration policies, particularly the ones we've seen recently causing such trouble in particularly Germany, I guess, with over a million immigrants coming in, some of them being genuine refugees, but most being really financial or economic migrants coming into the country over the past year, and it's just not. It's not tenable, because you cannot possibly absorb that number of people into the country. You can't do it, and so you can't do it and absorb them. You can get them into the country, you can pack them in, but what you're effectively doing is bringing part of some other countries and dumping them in your country, if you think about it, because they're not going to just disperse completely. You're going to get people in clumps, so you're ending up dividing up your country into little ghettos. That's what's ended up happening with certain groups of immigrants taking over certain areas of Germany. You don't see a complete abandonment of the rule of law, but I have to say, in certain areas, it's getting close, and that's the issue. The issue is cultural integration, and then economic. As I said, most of these people coming in are immigrants coming in order to better themselves. Now, that's all very well in small numbers, in manageable numbers. It's a good thing if they have the skills that the economy required. But there's been no thought or vetting put into who these people are. Well, I'm still talking about Germany coming into the country. Who are they? Are those skills needed? Do we need that number of people with this sort of profession, or do we need some other people? You know, do we need surgeons, or do we need road sweepers? What do we need? There's no thought put into that side of it, and that has nothing to do, whatever, with race.
Correct. Now, maybe this could be not so much about a point of racism or immigration. It's about a need for a given country. So if we take Germany, picking up on the example that you've given here, many people have said that perhaps there was a shortfall of workforce. That was certainly cited well before this influx of people. People felt that there were just not enough people to do or fulfill all the jobs. But to your point, when you bring in immigration into the equation, it's in this particular case surely been an issue of volume, to the point where now what does Germany do with the people that are there? How do they integrate them into society? Is it more around just simply how you manage the people and just simply accommodate them, or is it really now that people are turning and starting to use the racist card in this particular case? The reason I say that is that one of the things that we all know and love today is this lovely word called Brexit. This is where effectively the people of the United Kingdom chose to move out of the European Union. And of course, one of the reasons for citing to come out is this should we say, this concern over immigration, too many people going to mainland Britain. And is that really their fear? Is it their fear of new cultures coming in, or a different type of culture, or is it just simply a volume issue? What's your thought there on how it shaped people's opinions and votes?
Well, I think that there's those two issues that you mentioned come together: the numbers and the culture. Because if there's a small number of people, you can take over time, absorb them into the culture. They learn your ways and they get along. But on top of that, if there's only a small number of people not fitting in the culture, you don't notice it so much. Whereas if you get a certain number of people, enough people, such that you can have a functioning sort of little area like a block in a city. See, if you've got a few hundred people, then suddenly you've got effectively a little enclave, a ghetto, as I called it earlier, where people can live in a different way and reject the culture around. Now, in Britain, that has happened with different waves of immigration coming in, but it hasn't caused the same problem equally across different nationalities coming in. Let me give you one example. There's quite a large number of Chinese people living in the area where I live now. There's quite a number of Chinese people. Now, there were no complaints. No one. The most people will talk about them, which might be construed as racist, is that people tend to say they're very polite, nice people who work hard. Now, I think that is slightly racist, in that the assumption is that they all do that. But it's not negative racism; it's positive, because they're so well regarded, and it depends, you see, on the actual culture or cultural background of the people coming in, and some cultures mix less well with the European culture, and so I don't think it is racist that people say, "Oh, well, certain cultures don't fit in, or this new wave of refugees or immigrants don't fit in." It's the culture that they come from and the effect that they have around. And I'm not here talking particularly about Islam, for example, which does have a violent element to it, and so is of concern. But it could be a different side of the culture. For example, East European immigrants coming in, who may be from a sort of an English background, but their culture is so different, possibly because of the era under communist rule. We don't know, but the culture is so different that there are clashes with the British way of life, and so these are real issues causing real problems in people's real daily lives. They're not racist. They're concerns about how immigration works in practice.
Yes. Well, let's look at it on a slightly broader scale. So this idea of whether you allow certain people to come into a country or maybe not, and whether it is racist or not, is probably something that we're going to explore after I read this little poem. And this is called Bags of Room for Changing Customs. When packed off to the USA, I suddenly met a snag. On arrival at the terminal, my guts began to sag. Security marched towards me, which was a huge red flag. Then I felt a great big tug as my body began to drag. Moments of mindless mutterings could be heard as Trump did brag, and I was quickly labelled criminal, which I thought was such a gag. I prayed upon the open floor as the time started to lag, then was swept along with gusto, just like a cleaning rag. Remember, if you've travelled from certain foreign parts, but are rejected like me, a tired old bag, beware Uncle Sam's customs are changing, and tolerance is an unwelcome tag. Now, as we very well know, a certain Mr. Trump has started to try and implement certain policies. In his opinion, he believes that having a travel ban on certain people from certain countries is one way of actually stopping terrorism in his mind. Now, of course, this has sparked lots of chaos and also confusion with many citizens throughout the United States, and of course lots of protests. So, Clergyman Pete, I ask you, do you believe that what Trump is doing is right, or perhaps, like some, you feel he's just gone too far?
Well, on this particular policy, we're not taking all his
Yes,
policies and
just
all his
no, no,
behaviour,
no,
but
just
on
this
this,
policy alone.
because those looking at the back catalogue of our shows will know some of
Yes,
the harsh things I said about Donald Trump going back to the primaries. But
yes.
in this particular policy, I think that there is a problem with it. This is the executive order that he issued to ban immigration from 7 identified countries for 90 days, and for Syrian immigrants, or Syrian people applying for refugee status forever. Until he rescinds the ban. So there's just a Syrian refugee section to it. I think, and many people have pointed this out, that he doesn't go far enough. I think that he should. Yes, it's a good idea to put a halt on immigration from those countries in which there's not only the possibility of refugees actually being committed terrorists, they're coming into America in order to cause problems. There's also the large number of them who, having come from these 7 countries, I don't know, it's all of them, certainly 6 of them, have been very recently bombed incessantly under the Obama administration, and so made lots of enemies there. So even if they don't come in as terrorists, they'll come in with a bad view of the ways the Americans have treated them, and so they might go there and then, develop this antipathy, towards America. To be radicalised is how it's sometimes put. When it's not that the streets are paved with gold and it becomes difficult, and they get support from the people of their own faith, and these things can escalate, and that's what we've seen happening. The terrorist atrocities in America that we've seen recently have generally been of people who've come from these countries, or second generation, come from countries on this list, and have, these people coming in will have children. So it may not be them, it may be their children who commit the atrocity. So I think it's an entirely sensible plan, but there are other countries that should be included. It's an entirely sensible plan. Previous presidents have had bans on people coming from different countries. They all have, going back to Reagan. Every single president has banned people temporarily at certain times. Obama did it several times, and the last president held up as being, wrongly in my view, but held up as being a paragon of virtue when it comes to anti-racism. He's banned people. He banned people coming from Iraq. Rather arbitrarily, he just suddenly did it very quickly. Wrote his executive order to do it. So, my only problem with this temporary ban on people from certain countries coming, set up by Donald Trump, is that it doesn't go far enough.
Because it does state that under the US system of checks and balances, that courts can declare laws or acts by the president unconstitutional. So, as we all know, his order was basically stopped. And it looks like that Trump is not going to relent on this. He's going to persist with trying to ban people from certain countries. Maybe, to your point, he might even go even further. But I guess the question
there have been calls for him to go further.
Is it racist? Is it racist? Is that or is it perhaps something different? Is this card of being, as some of his critics often have accused him as just being pure racist? Now, is that true, or is it that people are misinterpreting what he's trying to do?
Well, look, I think we can see here how it is not only racist, but the courts didn't regard it as racist. Now, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal, which this ban on his ban, his executive order was stopped. This ban on his ban was a temporary stopping of his order until it went to the appeals court. Now, this Ninth Circuit of Appeals Court covers the area sort of around the edge of the United States, I guess. And it's been known to be rather left-wing, and certainly in this case, it was no surprise that they came up with a decision that was against Trump. But what they wrote was perfectly right. I don't think it was no way it was not going to be supported by the appeals court, because what they did was they referred to his past talk during the election time, or during the primaries, in fact, of talking about having a Muslim ban, which he did say, which was a stupid thing to say. I refer back and said, I've had criticised him before. That's one of the things I thought was stupid, to have a Muslim ban, which, is, okay, Islam isn't a religion, but that's anti a particular religion, and that has been argued to be not unconstitutional, because having a religious test before allowing you into the country is a principle. But the reason for stopping the executive order, which banned these people from certain countries coming in, did not rest on that. It was mentioned, but that wasn't one of the reasons. They specifically said, if you read the judgment, it specifically says they're not going to use that as the basis for it. The basis that they used for it was that that people, citizens of the country, obviously the people coming in aren't citizens, so they don't have rights under the Constitution per se. They would be able to sue, which if they were harmed by it. So there is some problem there, which will come into it. The basic reason for stopping it is that it will cause harm to citizens in the country, and the main reason cited was that universities wouldn't be able to bring in the students or professors that they wanted, and of course those banned from coming in could sue to the university to say, you offer me this post or this place. And so it was causing harm in that way. They were caused harm by this because the university wouldn't function properly. Now, some people would say, well, that's hardly a great price to pay for stopping people getting blown up. If you accept Trump's reason for the ban. So even the court itself did not say that it was racist. They just said that it will have an effect on the hiring policy of universities, etc. So I don't think it is racist. It's recognised as not being racist. The argument of saying everything you do that you disagree with is racist is something that seems to have been used by the Democrat Party and people who we would largely talk about on the left or the socialist side of politics. Everyone else is racist. Everyone who doesn't disagree with me is racist, bigot, homophobe. That's it. It seems to me that it's an ill thought out. It's not even an argument. It's just, well, we run out of arguments, so we'll just insult. As to why you would want to stop such a sensible policy, I have no idea.
Well, the actual executive order does state that what he's trying to implement is that nationals from Iraq, Syria, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and the Yemen, and even those with visas, actually, ironically, are banned from entering the United States. There is also a temporary ban on all refugee admissions. Crucially, the reprioritization of minority religion, interpreted to mean Christian refugee claims, a ban on all Syrian refugees, and a cap overall on total annual refugee admissions to the US of 50,000. Now, I guess the point here is that he has marked out specific countries.
Yes.
You could sit here and argue, well, wait a minute, I can think of many other countries that should also be banned.
Yeah.
But now, we're not party to all sensitive information, should we say intelligence information, and there may be very good reasons why he singled out those particular countries and not others. But I think that probably we've got to say here is many people are marked already in the few weeks of Donald Trump's tenure as United States President of the United States as being someone who not is just controversial through his own rhetoric, but is actually starting to look like a man who is alienating himself because he is perceived now to be racist. Now, I think that, to your point, that perhaps he has made commentary, which you've said that he's already indicated Islam and Muslims. He's used these terms. It's widely publicized through either Twitter or his own speeches. Now, the question is this a man who perhaps is potentially fueling further issues, which actually now start to make other people think again? Good example is in the United Kingdom, where people are now saying, we don't want Donald Trump to come to the United Kingdom. We're certainly not going to give him an opportunity with an audience with the Queen or even come to Parliament, which is apparently a very exclusive honour. Yeah. So is he actually going about this all in the wrong way? So he has an intent to protect the borders of the United States. I don't think anyone would have an issue with that. But is it really now that his standpoint is being perceived to be racist because of his dreadful choice of commentary?
Well, I think the dreadful choice of commentary is in the past. It's certainly not a recent thing. It's things that he said in order to get in. Basically. I just don't see it. I don't see that he's acting in a racist manner with this policy. I don't see him recently saying racist things. I don't see him as acting in a belligerent manner. Indeed, he has, put these things in place by the executive order. But when the court stopped it, it was allowed to be stopped. Okay, he said he disagreed with the judge and called him a so-called judge on Twitter. That's hardly him ignoring the result of the judge's decision. I think that this is very dangerous and very divisive, but it doesn't come from Trump. I think it comes from very much from the Democrat Party in the US. I think it comes from Obama's 8 years of divisive race baiting. What a terrible president he was in terms of his attitude to race, which put people of different races against each other, and glorified people who killed policemen and were known to have done so. That sort of overspill of this being okay to just break people down into their different races instead of looking beyond that, doesn't come from Trump, and it's been put on him because, as I say, there is no argument against what you're saying. It seems reasonable. But I do take issue with one thing that you say. You said, well, no one would have an argument with him protecting the border. But the thing is, yes, no sane person would. But it seems like the Democrat Party in the US has gone insane. It seems to be unhinged. Yes, there are many in there saying we shouldn't protect the borders. In fact, during Obama's time as president, really under his influence, people stopped enforcing the laws against immigrants slipping into the United States. And so when Trump says, we're going to start, President Trump rather says we're going to start stopping too many people coming in, some people have been deported back to Mexico, for example. Now, what he's doing is encouraging people to enforce the existing laws. They were already there. So I see this as a group of people believing their own rhetoric against Trump in a dangerous manner. They're the ones stirring up the racial hatred, not Trump. I think there are problems with Trump, his sort of general air of know-nothingness, his bullshiness, his speaking off the cuff too much when sometimes you need a little bit more thought. But this racist problem, this stirring up racial hatred problem, is coming from the other side of the political debate.
Well, there we go. Now then, listeners, what do you think? Do you think Donald Trump is perhaps being misrepresented here? Maybe he is not the person that people often say that he is. Maybe he isn't racist. What do you think? Do you agree with his policy? Or maybe you're one of those who are picketing right now to very much change some of his policies. So why not let us know? Drop us a line. Log on to markandpete.com or follow us at Mark and Pete on our Twitter account, and we'd love to sort of hear your views on this subject. Well, this subject is going to rage on more and more. So join us again next time for more colourful conversations with Mark and Pete.